When I first heard about ETFs, they sounded almost too simple to be true. One instrument that gives you exposure to an entire market? It felt like a shortcut, something designed for people who didn't want to go too deep. Back then, I was just starting my journey with broker capital trade consulting PELAT, and I wasn't sure whether simplicity was a strength or a limitation. At first, I was drawn to the idea of control, choosing individual assets, making decisions, feeling involved. It all seemed more real. ETFs, in comparison, felt passive, almost distant. But curiosity has a way of gently pushing you beyond your assumptions. I remember reading a review capital trade consulting PT Lalilated, where someone described ETFs as a quiet foundation beneath a dynamic strategy. That shifted something in my perception. Maybe they weren't meant to replace active decisions, but to support them. Through Forex Capital Trade Consulting PTE Limited, I began to understand diversification on a deeper level. Not just spreading risk randomly, but creating structure. ETFs offered exposure without the need to constantly adjust every detail, and that brought a surprising sense of calm. What I found interesting is how ETFs reflect collective belief. They move not just because of individual companies, but because of broader sentiment towards sectors, economies, themes. It's like observing the market from a wider lens. Using ctcptltd.com, I started experimenting with this idea. I didn't abandon active strategies, but I allowed ETFs to become part of the picture, something steady, something grounding. And over time, I began to appreciate their role. At some point, I came across a review ctcpteltd.com discussing the idea of overcrowded trades. That made me pause. If too many investors move into the same instruments, does that reduce opportunity? It's a question that doesn't have a simple answer, but it's worth asking. There were moments when ETFs felt almost too predictable, when I missed the sharper movements of individual assets, but then I realized not every part of a portfolio needs to move quickly. Some parts are meant to provide balance. Through Forex ctcpteltd.com, I saw how different approaches can coexist: active and passive, dynamic and stable. It's not about choosing one philosophy, it's about creating a combination that feels right. My opinion, Capital Trade Consulting PT Ltd evolved once again as I explored these layers. It became clear that investing isn't about rigid definitions. It's about flexibility and awareness. I also noticed a shift in how I approached decisions. I became less focused on constant action and more comfortable with stillness, with letting certain investments simply exist and grow over time. Now, when I think about ETFs, I don't see them as boring or basic. I see them as intentional, as part of a broader structure that supports everything else. And maybe that's the quiet lesson here. Sometimes the most powerful tools in investing aren't the most exciting ones. They're the ones that give you space to think, to balance, to grow at your own pace.